Hey everybody, Ben Rutz here, Digital Media Coordinator here at the Kokomo-Howard County Public Library main branch in the Digital Den, back with part 3 of how to start a YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about editing your videos, specifically editing it on YouTube. And you might be thinking, why are we talking about editing my video after I've already uploaded the video in the last episode? Well, the reason why is because we're specifically talking about YouTube Studio's video editor, and you have to upload your video before you can actually edit it. The reason why we're talking about this instead of another editor is that this one is specifically free. It is available both on your phone and on your computer, and it's widely accessible by everyone, and it's pretty simple. Okay, so that's why we're doing that instead of talking about like Windows Movie Maker, the Photos app on your computer, maybe even iMovie or something more complex like Adobe Premiere. Again, this one is just more accessible to everyone. And if you have questions about other video editors, I encourage you to just stop in here to the Digital Den and we can talk about your concerns and hopefully even help you figure out how to edit your videos using your preferred video editor. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll jump into the YouTube Studio Editor. I'll show you how to get there in a second, and we will go ahead and get started editing our video. All right, we are here back on my YouTube channel, Library Test Channel. And even though we edited, or well, rather uploaded our video in the last episode, you'll notice that right here, there is actually no video. That is there. Why exactly is that? Well, it's because we scheduled the video and we scheduled for a date that is in the future. So of course it's not going to show up on our channel. So if you schedule a video or even save it as a draft, it will upload to your YouTube channel, allowing for you to be able to edit it without other people being able to see it first. So for us to be able to go back in and find that video, we are going to click on the Your Videos button over here on the left-hand side. We're going to click on that. And there we are. It is our Gardening is So Fun video. My blog post there, like you can see over here on the visibility, it says that it is scheduled for a date that is in the future as of the recording of this video. And the length of the video is 30 seconds, but I will just go ahead and tell you that the actual content of the video is much shorter than that. And so there are some things we need to trim out. And trimming is something that you can do with ease on this YouTube Studio Editor, and it's actually a pretty decent function. So I will show you how to get to that YouTube Studio Editor. The way that you'll do it is you'll highlight the video that you want to edit, and you will click on the little pencil right there that says Details. We're going to click on that. It's going to bring us into the video, and if there was anything that you wanted to change on here from what we had previously uploaded in the last section of our mini class, you could do that. I could put in woohoo, and now that'll be added on there next time that when it officially uploads in the future. So what we're going to do to be able to get into the YouTube Studio Editor is over here on the left-hand side. We're going to click on the button that says Editor. We are going to click on Discard Changes, or I could click Save right over here and then click on the Editor. And then it will save all of that before I jump over to the editor function. All right, so here we are on the YouTube Studio Editor. It is a very basic editing software, on browser editor. And it is, there's not a whole lot of functionality, but you can do surprisingly more than you might think. So the main thing that we are going to focus on here for this is we are going to be using the trim function, but I will briefly discuss what the other things you can do using this, this editor first. Okay, so let's first talk about the different tracks that are right here. First one is the view track of your video. You can scrub through the content of your video by clicking and dragging, or you can even just click on a section on the timeline and you can go to whichever point that you wish. You'll notice here that it is broken down in a somewhat frame by frame system right here on the view track. You can even zoom in or zoom out by clicking on the respective buttons over here on the right hand side. I can click zoom in, and then I can look at a further and closer look at each individual frame. So if I want to get something, just nail it right as it happens in the video. Maybe I want to cut something out or blur something. Zooming in is great for that. Okay. Briefly, we'll talk about this next track here. This is your audio track. This is specifically for the audio that you've already put in your video. And you'll notice we've got some waveforms here. This is where I am talking in the video, all the way from here, all the way over to here is the bulk of the content of the video. And actually the only thing I want to keep in. So when we go back and talk about trimming here in a second, I will focus on that section of audio. Another thing that you can do with the audio track is you can click on this plus button right here, and you can actually add a track to your video. So if you are interested in adding some music to it, this is all free to use music by YouTube. You can just click on the add button right here, and it will add that song to your track. One thing to make sure that you are aware of, though, is it is automatically preset up so that you can only hear the music once you add that to your track. So any audio that you have on there will be overwritten. But it is easy to fix that, as you can come right over here on the right-hand side to where it says Adjust Mix Level. I can click this and drag it all the way over to the left, and that will mix the two pieces of audio together so that when I click on the play button, you will hear both. Let me go ahead and do that for you.
Hey, Grant Rutz here. This is my awesome YouTube channel. I want my YouTube channel to be amazing, so go ahead and smash that like button.
Cool. So you could hear me talking, and you could also hear the music. So that's kind of cool for a basic little function there. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to go ahead and remove that because I don't feel like I really need music for this video, but you might for yours. The next function down here is going to be the blur section. If there is something that you didn't mean to have appear in your video, one thing that you can do is you can blur that. And the great thing about the blur function is that will remove some copyrighted issues that you might have on your video. Like maybe you aren't legally allowed to add something into your video. You can use the blur function to blur that out, and then you'll be A-okay. If it is only a visual component that has been added to that section. Okay, so you can click on the plus button there, and it'll give you two options. It'll give you face blur or custom blur. The face blur will try to track the various faces that pop up in your video and allow for you to select one of those faces to be able to blur them out whenever they appear. It works okay. It's not an amazing tracking system. So typically I would use the custom blur if we're going to be blurring things at all. So that's what we're mainly going to be talking about in this class. So we're going to click on the custom blur function, and you'll notice that it still gives you the track object option, even without the, even without it being on faces. And it will actually allow for you to be able to track certain objects on your video here if you are trying to blur a specific function. Now, you'll notice that there's nothing that is coming up blurred over here on the right-hand side. That's because I added an audio track a moment ago. Even though I removed it, YouTube Studio Editor only really allows for you to add one thing at a time. Doesn't mean you can only add one thing total. It just means that you'll have to save all your changes and then go back in and edit it again to be able to get to the blur function. It's kind of clunky, and so I'm actually going to have to restart the video editor for us to look any further at this blur function. So give me just 1 second and I'll be right back. All right, we are officially back into the blur function. You'll notice that the blur function is now here on the right-hand side of the screen. I can click and drag that and then adjust the size of it. I can adjust the shape of it from a rectangle to an oval if I prefer that. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to switch it back to a rectangle and try to have it track my name tag that appears right here, and we will see how well that tracks. So it doesn't need to be super big. I can, whoops, didn't mean to add a second one there. I'm going to click the delete button, this trash can right here to delete that. I'm going to adjust the size of this to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to drag this over my name tag, and then using the track object, we'll see how well it does it. So let's scrub through our footage here. You can see that it is moving around as I move around, trying to stay at the exact spot that I told it to blur. it does a pretty decent job. As you can see, you don't see my name tag anymore on here because YouTube is blurring it out. But if you watch the video in real time, you're going to see that it's bouncing all over the place, and that might be a little bit disorienting for some folks. So instead, I'm going to use the fix blur position, which will allow for me to move around on the video, and the only thing that gets blurred is the actual section of the video on my screen right there. So if I move around and you can see the name tag at any point, then I can always adjust the size of it to be able to make sure that it fits more within that area, and then we're pretty much good to go. Again, fairly basic functionality on the blur function there, but enough that if you end up getting some sort of copyrighted thing on your screen, you can quickly slap that on top there, and it will remove that from your video, which will take away any negative engagement on that portion of your video. Okay. All right. So I don't really actually want to blur anything. So I'm going to delete that by hitting the delete button, or of course I can always hit the trash can as well. Okay. The last portion of the different tracks down here on the timeline is an add element track. It'll ask you to have a couple of different options here. I'm going to click on apply template so that I can show you that this is specifically talking about your end screens. You can either have it do an end screen or a card on here. We'll just show you the end screen for the purposes of this video. If you have more questions about end screens or cards, make sure that you jump back to part 2 to be able to check out all of those details, or stop on over here to the Digital Den at the Kokomo-Howard County Public Library main branch. So over here, I'm gonna have my end card. I'm gonna select this one, and you'll see that, of course, it gives you the same functionality that we talked about in the last video of adding a video or sending people back to your channel so that they can subscribe. Again, I don't really want to add this to this video because it is fairly short, so I'm going to remove that altogether, and I'm going to click all the way back until I am back at the beginning with nothing having been changed here. Like I said, we're mainly going to be talking about the trim function because that is probably the function that you will be using the most if this is the video editor that you will be going with. A lot of times you won't probably nail the exact timing of your video, and you'll have to cut out a little bit of the beginning and a little bit of the end, and that's what this is great for. So to be able to trim something, we're going to click on the trim function, and a blue border will appear around our entire timeline. So if I'm going to try to trim something from the beginning, I'm going to click on the far left-hand side so that I can drag it away. Now, anything that is in the dark here, you'll see is completely gone from the video. So if I drag it all the way over here on the timeline to right before I start talking, if I click play, no matter where I click on the timeline before it starts, it'll automatically drag the cursor over to the start of the video. Okay, so I think that we pretty well nailed that on here. We pretty well nailed the start of the video now. Now, if we look over here at the end, I walk off screen, and then there's some blank, and I, of course, disconnect a little bit from my green screen there. I probably should have added another key to it, but that's okay. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that I drag the end here so that it is only the portion of the video that I actually want to have saved. Okay, so I'm going to click on the timeline to see exactly where that ends. All right, I'm going to say that that should end right there. And I'm going to click and drag on the right-hand side of the page all the way until I get to the cursor. Perfect. We've nailed that. And I am good to go. If I hit the preview function, that will save the changes of the trim so that I can start doing other things and start adding various elements here. The reason why I went over the audio and the blur function before I talked about the track is because you'll notice that my video is now too short to actually add either of those functions. Okay. It says I'm still having the trim there. I'll have to click save on that to actually have it save. Before I officially save everything here, we're going to go back into the editor for our trim. We're going to click edit trim once again. And I am going to click on this button that says split down here at the bottom. So what you'll notice is that another blue bar has appeared on the screen here. And what that blue bar is it will allow for me to cut something out of the middle of my video. So maybe I said something that I shouldn't have, or maybe I screwed up a little bit and I want to connect two pieces of the same YouTube video together. I can just drag the section of video that I want to have cut out. Okay. And then no matter where I click on the screen in this area, it will automatically skip to the next portion of the video that is supposed to be included. So let's click over here on the first part, and then you'll see that it will skip ahead. So obviously, for the purposes of the video that I recorded, this doesn't look great because it was I cut out some actual content that I needed. But if you screwed up or there was a long pause or something like that, you could easily cut that out and flawlessly be able to jump from the first portion of your video to the second one. And the cool thing is you can add as many splits as you want throughout the video, and there is no limit on that. So once I have finished editing everything and I'm really happy with it, I'm going to click preview here on the bottom, and then you'll see that the save function is now available. I will click on save, and I will click on save once again, and video and YouTube will start processing the video, and it'll say check back again later to be able to watch your video, double check and make sure that it's good. And then of course it'll be ready to publish if you've already scheduled it out. If you haven't, then you could go back in and publish it at any time once YouTube has finished processing and editing that video for you. So that's pretty much it. That is how you use the YouTube Studio editor there. And if you have any other questions about that or any other editing software, please stop into the Digital Den and we can talk further about that. If you have other questions about how to increase engagement on your YouTube channel once you've talked about that, that can really vary from person to person depending on what kind of content that you are talking about or what kind of vibe you're going for, because when it comes to targeting specific audiences, you need to take a different route to be able to get to each one. So when it comes to that, I do recommend you stop on over here to the Digital Den and we will talk about it further. Until next time, that will be it for this class. Coming up next week, we will be shifting gears from YouTube to 3D printing. So instead of talking more details on the YouTube channel, we will be talking about that. So if you're interested in 3D printing, we'll be talking about all the basics over the next month, throughout the month of July. So make sure that you stick around for those. We are back with videos every single Monday at 6 p.m. on both YouTube and Facebook. So make sure you look then if you're curious about other mini classes. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.